It's not a cat. That's just you left Slint on the radio.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here. If you're new to the channel, normally what we do here is cover a different band every week. Tuesday, we rank their studio albums. Wednesday, we give you our top 10 favorite songs. And Thursday, we have a third discussion video inspired by the artist at hand. Doing things a little different this week. Normally, we have a minimum of 5 studio albums before we cover a band, just to keep things a little more interesting. This week, though, we're calling it Listography Jr. We are only covering bands that have less than 5 albums. On Tuesday, we covered Jane's Addiction, Wednesday, Nirvana. So if you haven't seen those videos, check them out. Today, kind of like the side 3 of this concept, a band with only 2 albums. So it's a this or that type of situation. Talking about Slint, interesting band that sometimes on this channel, we know and love the bands. Sometimes we don't know them going into the week. Sometimes we have a lot of experience and sometimes it's new to us. I have a feeling this might be a band that's a bit newer to us. I myself have sampled Slint from time to time. I'm not sure that I've ever listened to an album start to finish. How about you guys?
I've purposely avoided listening to a Slint album in my life for very good reason. And I was forced to listen to them this week, and I'm not too happy about it.
This is my third go around with Slint, all 2 albums of them. I listened to Slint probably like 05, 06, 07, basically because of the stuff I was listening to on Rhapsody back in the day. Killer engine for similar artists and influence, kind of clickbait. Slint was one of them. Didn't think much of them. Ran into a super douchey, pretentious dude at a party in like 2010, 2011 with Dan Schmidt. He would not shut the fuck up about Slint, and he was a total tool bag in every other regard. So I was like, I'll check him out again. Don't really remember. Still didn't really blow me away. This week was different. I see it now. So if you're out there, major asshole, thanks for your recommendation. I ended the night. I went, I'm going to get a beer. And he's like, can you grab me one? I was like, yeah. And I just walked out. Hopefully he never got his damn beer.
It's probably how I'm going to feel about you after this show.
Well, this show is probably our last one if people watch their Nirvana video. There's definitely a hashtag get rid of Joe video or movement out there right now.
No one cares about Nirvana. So who's going first for Slint?
My turn.
What is your ranking of these 2 albums? Which one you got?
My least favorite Slint album is 1989's Tweeze, produced by Steve Albini. Kind of interesting that we're doing this same week, the day after Nirvana. This came out in 89, the same year as Bleach, produced by someone who had produced Nirvana's final album. I guess, I don't know, Slint is considered math rock, post-hardcore, sort of different titles thrown around for them. It was also released on a record label called Jennifer Hartman Records, which was just their friend Jennifer Hartman, and it was the only record that label ever released. Every song on the record is named after their parents, except for the final track, Rhoda, which is named after a dog. So, that's what we're dealing with here. I think there are a ton of cool ideas on this record. I love the guitars that open the track Ron on the first song on the record. That main riff with the harmonics, super cool. Love it. I think Kent has really cool groove to it. There's a lot of really cool rhythmic ideas on this record. Some of it's kind of complex, but it never feels like too heady or overly complicated. I think they do a good job of making the more complex moments sound simple and accessible. Still, though, something about it doesn't fully connect for me, and I think it's the guitar tones and just the recording and the sound of it. I wish it was more immersive, and I think that's the big difference between this and the next record. I think they get a little better at that sort of thing. That's the big separator for me between the 2 records. I like Ron, though. I like Kent. I think those are really cool tunes. 3 stars for me on Tweeze.
It's about 3 higher than we got coming from Joe. I got a feeling. All right. I, like Jason, through this entire catalog, have the same album at the bottom. I've got Tweeze at number 2. I'm up to 3.5. I think it's really good. I get it. I actually prefer the sound of this album. Steve Albini can pretty much do no wrong in my life. I like the fat bass and guitar work on Run, like you said. Nan Ding is really cool. Lovely, actually. And I really just dig the sporadic, these songs don't work like traditional pop songs. They work like pieces of your mind where it's just kind of like here, there, but there is a unison to the musicality. I love the droney basement dreamlike sound. I think the drum work is really cool at times. I think Carol comes at you really cool, like this muscly buzzing hornet. Kent has a really cool upbeat swing sensation in it. Charlotte is awesomely whiny and heavy. I think the worst thing about this band is actually his voice when he's singing. I like it when he's talking, when he's doing the spoken word. I like it when he's screaming. But sometimes when he's singing, it doesn't seem too in place with the band. It sounds like Ben Gibbard almost at times. Like, it's very unusual. But I just love the mood and the aura of this album. That's right, I said aura, and I meant it. It's like a totally different musical language, communicates a feeling and a vibe really well. The bass does a lot of the melodic work on here, which is cool. Everything else is texture at times. There's actually a really cool underrated thump to this record that I don't remember it having. I love the guitar work on Pat. I just think Albini kind of nailed the sound and the feel and the style of this band and the dissidence, and I think it's really good. I don't think, it deserves the praise that Spiderland gets, but 3.5, really good. I enjoyed it. But I also kind of like a lot of the post-rock kind of sound and all that. Joe, do you still want to talk about it?
Well, no, because I ain't talking about Tweeze. I'm talking about Spiderland at the bottom. Thought about giving it 0 stars, but I'm softening. I'll give it 1, a star, singular. It's funny reading about this album. I don't even want to talk about the music because it's just total garbage. Every person who talks or writes about this album does so in the most pretentious, annoying manner ever. All you have to do is go on like Wikipedia and look at the bands that it's considered a major influence on. It's like all the bands I don't like. So it just makes sense that I would really hate this album. I hate the talking more than almost anything. I do think there's some almost interesting guitar parts going on, but it reminds me a lot of Sonic Youth. Like, it's, if Nosferatu Man was sung by Billy Corgan, I think I might like it, because there's almost like elements there that are interesting, but it also sounds like they've mistuned their guitars, which I don't love. So I just hate everything about this band. I knew I hated them without ever having to hear them, just from like the occasional references that you get in like a Explosions in the Sky review, or Mogwai, or like Pavement, like, oh yeah, Slint, yeah, I love Slint, a big influence. Like, you always get that, and it's just like, I'm not ever going to listen to Slint. So you force me into it, and I give it 1 star, and I just do not like it so much.
No trifecta. The odds were heavily in our favor, but
I can't believe Jason's going to give this one 3 to 3.5 stars.
I can't wait to see what you give Tweeze.
10 stars. I'm giving Tweeze 10 stars.
You're going to do 2 1-star albums. My number 1 is Spiderland, produced by Brian Paulson, who produced Uncle Tupelo, Wilco, Sunvolt, Superchunk. A lot of bands that I like. I think it builds off of Tweeze in a really cool way. It takes basically the same sort of formula, but I think it makes it sound a little bigger, a little fuller. Like I said, a little more immersive. Breadcrumb Trail builds into something really big and full, bigger and fuller than anything on Tweeze, I think. They play with dynamics a lot more on this record. There's like long, quiet stretches where it like starts to build and they like tease it, and then it drops and gets quiet again, and then builds up again before you get to the really big crescendo. They do that really well on the track For Dinner. I think it's really cool, unique, interesting. I enjoyed listening to it, but at the same time, and I felt this way about both records, I don't really find it like exciting or exhilarating. So it's not like really getting me, that into Slint. I think it will take more visits, like it took Cram a few tries. I don't dislike it by any means. Staying at 3 stars. I think it's really cool, interesting. But yeah, there's I don't know, something that's just not pulling me in fully yet at this point.
Well, that's also my number 1, Spiderland. And count the fingers, Joe. No, don't worry, just 4. 4, objectively, which we don't do here. Like, I have to tip my hat because of all the artists that, like Joe was saying, harken back and say, this is, a building block of our sound. I have plenty of 5-star albums that would cite this record as being one of their favorites, but for a note, I judge on turn it on, listen to it, turn it off. How do you feel? And it's merely just 4 stars. I don't grade on influence. It's more stripped down, I think, than the original, but Jason's right. It does have a weird, more immersive quality just from the compositions alone. It's odd. It's rhythmically weird. It's coolly experimental. And man, I thought I was going to be super cool with that observation, but you nailed it. They do that start, stop, tease thing so well. Like when you think it's building up and then they kind of just quiet down, and it's just, the whole thing is such a tease so well. And I love the anxiety and despair on this. Like you really feel like, I listened to it probably about 3 times. And one of the times I was walking around while it was like lightly raining and it was like just before it got dark. And I found myself just like looking at people and like sneering and disgust, just like judging them for no reason, because the music just like took me over completely. It's like being inside this just unfocused mind, a mind that can't relax, and it's just full of peril. It's very cool how they capture that. Elements of spawning post-rock from Pavement to Deftones all the way to Black Country New Road. So, you can definitely tell why Joe doesn't like it, and I do. The dissonance is great. One of the reasons why I don't have it above 4 is For Dinner kind of doesn't bring it up for me as much. And as well as I think they do capturing these weird moods and stuff, I do think the album is a little bit unexplored. Like, I think they could have taken it further, or in their next album, it would have been even more realized. Washer has an amazing melancholy sadness to it. You feel like you're sad and going crazy at the same time, like you're in this cuckoo clock and the gears and everything are kind of falling apart around you. It's very cool. There's an underlying sense of danger and like a breaking point to it. I think the closer, Good Morning Captain, is amazing and has just one of the best slow boils to a song I've ever heard. 4 stars. I do think it's great. I respect it as a 5-star piece of influence, but for listenability, just 4 stars. But it is my favorite Slint album.
Well, it's not my favorite Slint album, and during your review, I like the way you said that it turns you into an asshole when you're listening to it. So that's another strike against it. I have Tweeze as my favorite Slint album, and that is generous, saying favorite. That seems to infer some sort of enjoyment from the listening. I didn't get any, but at least on Tweeze, I kind of respect what they were doing. So I have it at 2.5 stars. Some interesting instrumental stuff they're doing. Like it's almost metal at some points. Warren sounds like Faith No More on acid or something. Like it's got pretty badass guitar playing, which I was not expecting. I actually listened to them in reverse order. I did Spiderland first, and then I went to Tweeze. And I wouldn't say I liked it, but it just felt less annoying to me. It's only 29 minutes, so it's like here and gone. And it has some interesting concepts that I don't think, I just don't like the direction they went with Spiderland, because the interesting stuff, I just don't think they did as well, and they sort of honed in on like the pretentious bullshit post rock crap on Spiderland a little too much. I like the rawness and the what the hell on Tweez. It's a lot more, to me anyway, sort of like random and just like, you know, seat of your pants, just let's do all this crazy shit and we'll just have an album and that's it. So I thought they did that reasonably well for a bunch of whoever's, and from Louisville, are they from? It's a weird place to be from for a band. The production from Steve Albini is good too. So I don't know. I like that they're all named after like first names too, except for Nan Ding. I don't know what that is, but it's hilarious to me talking about songs called Carol, Kent, Charlotte, Darlene. Love Warren. You know, big fan of Pat. Rhoda. Ron. Ron's just a great name for a song. Love that, Ron. Whew.
All right, top 5 songs. I will kick it off. Number 5, Breadcrumb Trail, the opening track to Spiderland. I think the growth from Tweeze is immediately apparent. I think they're doing some really interesting rhythmic shifting on that track. Number 4, Nosferatu Man. Possibly their most straightforward track. It kind of like rocks a bit in an almost traditional way. I think the guitar on it is really cool. There's some good interplay going on between the two guitarists. Number 3, Washer. Reminds me of bands that would follow, especially in the vocals. Reminds me a little of like Owen, some Mountain Goats in there. Cram mentioned Ben Gibbard. I could kind of hear that a little as well. I also like the really long, slow build. Really takes its time. Apologize if you can hear my cat screaming. My number 2, Good Morning, Captain. I love that dissonant little bass part. Really cool drumming. I like the groove. Tells the story of becoming an adult, kind of saying goodbye to your childhood. But number 1 is the opening track from Tweeze, Ron, simply for the fact that I love that main riff, those guitar harmonics. I also love the spoken word. Steve, these headphones are fucked up. Just really cool. So there you go.
Number 5, this was hard. I would say there were a lot of nominees for the 5 spot, but numerically there were not, because there's only like 11 songs in the Slint catalog. I'm actually going with Nan Ding here. It's just a 1.5 minute little piece, but I think it's really pretty and cool in a weird way. Love the more sparkly guitar sound here. There's like fierce chaos that jumps in really quick once in a while. I think the drums are great. It's a simple little piece, but it makes my ears perk up. Number 4, I've got Carol. Scratchy, awesome guitar and snapping drums, and I love the sound of his screams and the high-end harmonics kind of jumping off the messiness of the guitar. Really cool. Number 3, I've also got Washer. Big, epic, moody piece, well-written and downtrodden, perfectly drony and a bit creepy. Number 2, Nosferatu Man. Good call. It's almost like they're a heavy, straightforward, like metally rocker. I love the fully realized rich guitar power on it, juxtaposed with that dead inside sort of spoken word. Very cool. Number 1 is Good Morning, Captain, which I think is their masterpiece. Great slow boil, full of eeriness, shadowy, lonesome, dangerous thought provocation. Builds so well and hits with that "I miss you" line at the end. So good. Yeah, what really would have been interesting to see what a third album from Slint sounded like, but they all went on to do pretty cool stuff as well.
Anywho, my top 5 Slint songs. I'm just faking it at this point. Number 5, we'll do. Sorry, I actually do. So number 5, we're gonna do Pat. There's some crazy ass guitar playing. Number 4, do Charlotte. Sounds almost metal, which is interesting, like guitar tone. Number 3, Warren, which I described earlier as Faith No More on acid. I will say that again because I have nothing else written about it. And number 2, we're gonna go Rhoda, because it marks the end of Tweeze, which I liked. Number 1, we're going to do Good Morning, Captain, because it's the last song I had to listen to from Slint.
All right, everybody. So let us know what you think of Slint. Put your ranking down in the comments. Let us know what your favorite tracks are as well. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you've not done so yet. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our website, Patreon, merch store. All of that is in the video description. Check it out. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.